This is the Hasselblad 907X. It's a camera unlike any camera I've used before. Not because of the €12,000 price tag, the 100 megapixel sensor, or because its ancestors have been to the moon, but because of the intentional and minimalistic shooting style it naturally infused into my photography. It's a digital camera that looks and feels like an analog camera. But more than that, it actually works as a bridge between the analog and digital photography world. As a film photographer with a weak spot for modular cameras, I couldn't have been more excited when Hasselblad asked to partner up for this collaboration.
Every time I visit a new brutalist spot, I think like this is the best spot, and then comes the next and it's even better. But this is pretty cool. Well, never would I have thought that somebody like Hasselblad would just casually slide into my DMs and ask if we want to work together. And what can I say? If Hasselblad knocks on your door, you better open up. For full transparency, this can be considered a paid collaboration because I'm allowed to keep this camera as a payment in exchange for some content that you're watching right now, which I, by the way, think is a pretty cool approach, and I wish that more brands would work like this, because this gives me the opportunity to actually explore this camera on a deeper level and also continue working with it even after the collaboration has ended. So you might actually see this in future videos as well, which I think is pretty cool. So it will not be a technical review in this video here, but it will rather be a regular on-location type of shoot where we shoot brutalist architecture. Nonetheless, Hasselblad told me that it's okay if I share my honest opinion, so I will talk about the good but also the bad things that I encountered with this camera. Just a little spoiler alert, there haven't been too many negative things that I encountered so far. As I said in the intro, I actually think that this camera shaped my shooting style in a very specific way. So without any further ado, you can already see the first spot in the background. So let's get started.
If you've been following the channel for a while, you might know that I've been working on an ongoing project called Béton Brut, where I photograph brutalist architecture all throughout Germany. For today, we have 3 brutalist gems on the list that I wanted to check out for ages, and also a little bonus semi-brutalist spot where I will try out the digital bag in combination with the Hasselblad 500cm film camera. But first things first, the first spot is a church called Christi Auferstehung in Cologne-Lindenthal. I didn't expect much from this place, but in the end it was nicer than I thought, and we actually found several angles to explore it from.
I think this is really where the kind of hip shooting comes in handy with architecture and buildings, where you kind of have this angle from below anyway. Usually, like with a viewfinder, you have to get all down here, and here you can just hold it like this. I mean, of course, a lot of digital cameras have like tilt screens as well, but this just kind of hits differently, I think.
Right from the get-go, it's rather clear that this camera is not like the typical digital camera you might be used to. It feels like a brick and more like a TLR, since it lacks a viewfinder with an eyepiece, but has a gigantic screen instead. One thing I hate about shooting digital in comparison to film is that you have unlimited options to work with after you've taken an image. So I quickly experienced something called option paralysis. With digital, I can later choose the overall look or crop I want to go with. And with that, I get so overwhelmed that I just can't choose. That's why I love film, because you make the decision before you start shooting and then you just have to live with it. And the Hasselblad actually gives me a similar experience as with film, since it encourages me to select a crop beforehand and then just roll with it. I decided to shoot 4x3 or panoramic for the majority of my color images and 6x6 square for my black and white images. And making that choice, selecting the crop ahead of time, helped me to feel less overwhelmed.
So this is actually pretty cool, because if you activate a crop mode, as for example I have the square aspect ratio dialed in right now, you will still see outside of the frame, so you can still see like what's left and right from the kind of cutout that you're seeing right now, which is pretty nice because the JPEG will be in the aspect ratio you selected, but the RAW will actually be the full image. So in case you maybe decide that another crop would be better, you still have the possibility to work on the RAW. And I personally really love shooting in the crop mode and in the aspect ratio that you aim to do in the end, because it just shapes your vision in a different way and you look out for different compositions. So this is pretty cool. Okay, so there's like a nice shadow I think I want to take home as well. Very clean composition, I like that. And what's cool fact that you can use the autofocus, and it's pretty spot on. You can also activate it like autofocus by touch. But getting to the manual focus is quite simple because all you do is this. I honestly hate when you have to look into the menu of a camera to set the manual focus. So this is actually perfect because you have a distance scale and all you do is this short movement and you can switch between AF and MF. And the manual focus is actually pretty cool as well because you can select a spot and then you will have this kind of green indicator, and once it blinks green, you know that it's in focus. Pretty spot on. Shall we go inside?
Also, the church was open to the public, so I was able to see how well the images would hold up in more extreme conditions.
So we're inside, so this is actually kind of a low light test as well. Let's, put it up to 1600, probably. f2.5. No, I think we have to go to 3200 and see how it will perform. I'm whispering, I'm sorry, but it has to be done. And let's get in. Ich wollte sagen, ich habe 1, 2 Fotos von Ihnen gemacht, während Sie gespielt haben. Ist das okay für Sie? Ja, klar. Ja, okay. Dankeschön. Tschüss.
Why do I still feel like I should whisper in the voiceover? Anyway, all of these photos were shot at ISO 3200 and I would say it's an easy win for the low light capabilities of the 907X. It was way darker in the church than visible on camera, so I was pretty impressed how well the files held up. There was a bit of noise visible, which you could probably easily get rid of in post, but I actually find the noise rather pleasing in this case, reminding me a bit of film grain.
I've said it already, but this camera doesn't have IBIS, which means that in low light situations like this one, you really have to have still hands, because otherwise it might be shaky. But coming from film, being a film photographer, well, this doesn't bother me at all. That was an amazing spot. I didn't expect this to be so diverse. And now let's go to the next one.
The next spot is yet another church. Brutalism and churches just seem to go hand in hand together. And this one is called Heiliger Johannes the 23rd, located in Cologne-Sülz.
I think we're here at the right time because the sun is relatively high. We have some harsh shadows, so I'm very excited and I don't want to waste any more time talking to the camera, but shoot instead. Oh my god, this is so cool. I'm in brutalist heaven.
This project is usually solely shot in black and white, but as you might have seen by now, I've shown you just as many, if not more, color than actual black and white images. And the reason is rather simple, because the colors of the Hasselblad are just too good. The 907X actually works with a 16-bit color depth, which is a spec on paper I quickly brushed off until I actually saw the stunning results that came out of this thing. I was aiming to shoot primarily black and white, but in the end I just left the majority of images in color because they simply looked better this way. By the way, the black and white images you see are all edited to give them a rougher look with visible grain to blend in with the rest of the series, which was not an easy thing to do because the Hasselblad files are just so clean. For the look I'm going for, they are almost too perfect and too flawless, so getting them to look gritty took quite a lot of work. The color images, on the other hand, were barely touched by me. I adjusted the exposure here and there or cropped in a bit more, but the colors for the most part are just as they are, which speaks for itself because they look natural and pleasing just straight out of camera.
So one thing I have to say that's a little bit annoying is that Hasselblad doesn't offer a black and white preview. I might be a little bit spoiled because my other cameras do have a black and white preview, which makes it a little bit easier to envision how a frame will look like, especially with this harsh shadows. So that's a bit of a bummer that I can only see it in color and have to imagine how it looks like in black and white. It can be a pro, but it can also be a con, depending on how you look at it. I think we got a flower in the last spot, so let's see if we can kind of make it a series. Oh my god, I love this one, seriously. Das ist so simpel, aber so nice irgendwie. Und diese Qualität, guck dir das an, wie krank. So I am not a flower person. I never liked photographing flowers. But I think today I might have just unlocked a new interest. Contrasting flowers and brutalist buildings is like this fragile nature and brutal concrete that kind of clash. So I think I might make this an extension of the series actually. I think we collected a couple of frames for it as well.
Actually, seeing the Béton Brut series go in a totally different direction is what I mean when I say that this camera shapes your shooting style. I came here to shoot concrete buildings with a grainy and gritty black and white look and ended up shooting things like flowers and trees in color. I think that I got some images in my usual style that complement the series quite well, but what's more important is that this camera truly encouraged me to just go with what I see on the screen and change direction of the project even when I initially had a different plan.
I think this spot is actually really nice because we don't only have this church, which looks impressive in and of itself, but we also have this, like, I don't know, block in the background. So I think we can do something with the contrast of them. Okay, I'm just gonna go down to base ISO, since it's pretty bright here.
The base ISO of this camera is actually ISO 64. Does it ring a bell? Well, I don't know this for a fact, this is more of a guess, but I assume that the base ISO of 64 was not random, but was actually chosen as an ode to Kodachrome 64, one of the most iconic slide films ever made that sadly doesn't exist anymore due to the complicated K14 development process. This is another small hint that makes me enjoy this camera so much, because it caters to the shooting style of film photographers. No black and white preview, no IBIS, no video capabilities, slow-ish loading times between frames might be deal breakers for digital photographers, but for film photographers it actually feels rather familiar and almost like shooting a film Hasselblad. Talking about catering to film shooters, we have to talk about the obvious and probably most important reason film photographers are interested in this camera, because you can use the digital bag to transform your old analog Hasselblad into a digital one. I don't own a film Hasselblad, but luckily I have a friend who got a 500cm and who was kind enough to let me borrow it out. So big shout out and thank you to Radek, by the way. However, I didn't manage to get it in time for the brutalist shoot in Cologne, so I took it out on a quick little spin in my home city instead. I photographed a building called the West LB, which is more postmodernism than actual brutalism, but hey, it's something and still looks interesting in my opinion. Basically, all you have to do is to remove the film bag and attach the CFV digital bag, and you get to operate the camera just like you normally would. The CFV bag also automatically recognizes that you have a film body attached and switches to a different menu. That way you get the best of both worlds. The whole experience of looking through the ground glass of a waste-level finder, winding the film, but also getting instant digital files instead. I use the 80mm planar, which of course is a bit softer than modern lenses, but for the fact that this lens is probably around 60 years old or so, it's still impressively clean and sharp. This was just a quick excursion into another use case of this camera, which probably deserves a whole video of itself in the future. But for now, let's check out the next and also last location. Just a couple of 100 meters from the Johannes Church, we found the Universitäts- und Stadtbibliothek, therefore the University and City Library. Sadly, it was closed that day due to a public holiday, but from the outside there was still enough to discover.
We're at the last spot for today, which is the University Library. I thought it's just like one building, but actually the area around is also quite brutalist, and yeah, the only thing we have to watch out for is geese poop, because there's quite a lot of mines here.
Besides the way you hold and operate the camera, there's another aspect about it that significantly shaped my shooting style. Since the files are so big and since I don't want to deal with images I will not use later, I found myself shooting way more selectively. I haven't shot a whole lot of more images that day than the ones that you've seen in the video, so I would say that I didn't overshoot like I oftentimes would when shooting digital opposed to film. But let's not fool ourselves here, because a camera is not responsible for the way that you shoot, but you are. So if you want to shoot more mindfully and reduced, you can do that with whatever camera. It just takes the dedication and practice to not shoot like a berserk in burst mode. So in the end, it all comes down to your shooting habits rather than the camera you use. However, I believe that the tools you use can significantly shape and influence your shooting habits and either encourage or prohibit you to shoot in a certain way, which is very obvious with a camera like the 907X.
Be careful, careful, careful. What a bummer that the sun is not out now. I think this would have been good with some harsh shadows as well. Ah, there it is, talking about the sun. When you have sun, you have like so much going on, so many shapes that happen. And I feel like you could come here like 4 times a day and you would encounter a totally different scene each time. So yeah, I guess I have to switch the project around a little bit and seek out for more sunny days.
All in all, I think that this day of shooting was pretty successful. I got a couple of keepers for my main Béton Brut project, which I would probably reduce down to this selection of squares here, moving straight into the portfolio. But also because I accidentally stumbled upon a little side quest project, contrasting nature and the buildings, which I probably have to owe to bringing this camera without a black and white preview.
This camera definitely changed the way I shoot, not only because I hold it extra tightly and hope it won't get stolen because this would hurt the bank quite a lot, but also because the waist level viewfinder kind of changes how I approach compositions. I hold the camera kind of downwards and therefore tilt the camera upwards, and therefore just look out for different perspectives and different framings, which I found very, very interesting. So interesting, in fact, that I'm considering to sell some of my other analog equipment in order to buy an analog Hasselblad, because it would make so much sense to have a digital bag for the analog Hasselblad so that you have even more lens options available. So that's a thought that definitely popped into my mind today. But in any way, this will not be the last video, but you will see this camera a little bit more on the channel, which I'm looking... If the goose let me speak. But in any way, this will not be the last video, but you will certainly see this camera in more videos yet to come. But for now, I will thank you for tuning into this one. Thanks for watching and definitely see you in the next episode. Kann ich das irgendwie lustig schneiden? Bestimmt, oder? Okay.